Hey, this is Tracy with Color Me This. We're on episode 40, which is my Prismacolor detailed walkthrough. So I have owned the Prismacolors for a while. I first had a 36 set years ago that I picked up, and I got as far as swatching them on my swatch sheets that I love. So this was my only use of these. I then bought the 150 when I started to see, as I went further along in my coloring journey, I decided to get the set. I already owned at that point the Brute Funer squares, the Brute Funer macarons, and in my research I saw that the Amazon Basics were a good match, so I picked those up. I'm going to move this aside. This big case is where the 150s live, as well as I found out the Crayola 100s. So this is the only swatching I have done. It is a chart that I chose so that I could do my own color comparisons. It is from tammyanncreative.com. The pencils are in a color family, as you can see, starting with green. So it's not my normal. Today, where I am at in my journey, I like my color family order to be different than this, starting with yellows. I decided, because I had this already done and the pencils are already stored in the color family order as seen on this chart, I went ahead and left them that way. It's still not clear to me how often I would use these over my color matches that I have. The highlighted yellow are the colors that I do not have a match for. So that is my history with the Prismas. I never even, looked at them for quality. I hardly sharpened them until this time around using them, because all I did was that little tiny swatch. So my goal with doing this walkthrough was to try really hard to not judge them and not or prejudge them, I should say. So I tried to think of them just as a new pencil set that I was trying to get to know. So I love the colors. I have a lot of the colors are out because I had been using, the last thing I did was I was working on frogs. I like how they sharpen. They sharpen very well. They actually, because I'm a light-handed colorist, I never broke a single tip. I had one or two crumble at the very beginning, but was really relieved because, again, that the minute it crumbled, I started to judge that. But I just got my sharpener. I use the Jarlink electric sharpener right here, and the crumbly ones, the couple that I did start to go, uh-oh, is it doing the bad quality thing? They sharpened up just fine, so I have no really short stubs left. I did notice that the tips on the shallow, how they come sharpened, they all looked furry to me. And most of them, when I sharpened them in the Jarlink, here is one that I've clearly been sharpened, it doesn't look as fuzzy, but I do think it's a very soft, sort of pulpy wood. So I don't know that that changes anything about them, but just be aware that the wood on them seems to be pretty soft and, for lack of a better term, furry. I don't even know if I'm putting this back in the right place. As far as legibility, it is your typical very tiny words, and for whatever reason, on all of these light colored ones, for the most part, they did silver, which in this particular light is okay, but when I was over at my recliner, which does not have natural light, I had a really hard time with these light colors. What I would prefer, if I had my druthers, is for all light colored pencils to have the black, because I can read powder blue perfectly clear. So anyhow, that definitely is a common problem. That's not something for these pencils alone. And I love all the light colors here. We'll look through my swatches. I have, here's one. A couple of them have some flawed paint. One or two might have a crack, though I didn't really even notice any of them. The paint is like a half matte. It's like a dull, so it doesn't have like a shiny, fancy look to it. And then you do, as everyone knows, have the cap is not covered with paint, or the end isn't covered with paint, so you can see if your lead is centered or off center. I didn't really notice when I sharpened any obvious off-centered. This one probably is off-center, so if you look here, it is definitely off-center, and how I noticed it is that one side sharpened really deep and the other shallow. So some of these are definitely going to be out of order because they're not in color family, so the way I would normally do it. So let's get to looking at the swatch sheet. Nope, I'm going to do barrels first. So the barrels. I've got some pencils to compare to, just ones that are floating around my drawing table. Let's just pick them up. What have I got? I grabbed a Farben, a white Pablo, an Artex, and a Polychromos, and then I am going to grab a Prisma here, and I'm going to see if, looking straight down, you guys can tell the core sizes. I did a pre-analysis and have decided that the Farben here on the far right is the smallest core. There's 3 core, really all 4 of these cores look very close to the same. I would say the Artex might be just a teeny bit larger, but the Prismacolor is right there with the other 3. And then the barrel itself, I've already said, has, this one is of the finishes, this one's a glossier finish, but it still isn't, you know, it doesn't have the gold, so it doesn't have that really fancy look. The Artex is a silver, but it has a really glossy with the barrel on the end capped, and so I think the Prismacolors to me look more like a workman tool, not a fancy artist looking tool. I did find it interesting when we compare the barrel sizes. Let's get this zeroed out. That 7.64, this is the Farben. Artex 7.7. Here's the Prisma 7.34, so I'm going to set that over there. 7.78, that's the Poly. And then the Pablo is the sveltest of the pencils, 6.88. And to me, a lot of the watercolor pencils are hex shaped, though any of them can be hex shaped, but when I feel this, it feels like, you know, an Albrecht Dürer watercolor. So the size, this is on the smaller side, the Prismacolor barrel diameter. It has a very light feel to it compared to like the Artex, and the Polys feel, you know, very sturdy. And it feels like the Farben to me. The Farben has also this sort of a matte finish that has a different feel to it than the super glossy ones. But other than that, I thought that the Prismas felt nice in the hand. I thought that they, the color laydown was definitely very vibrant. When I were to use them, I was able to do light layers as well as the heaviest pressure that I can do, which is probably not the heaviest pressure someone else can do. And I have filled out my pencil test sheet, but now I want to compare. I want to do the swatches that I did. Looking for where I put them. I know they are very close by. Here they are. So moving on to the colors, and then we'll do a couple of barrel comparisons as well. So I believe these are in order as the previous swatch sheet is that I showed you. So I feel, being a greens person, I love all the greens. There is a gap in the greens a little bit where I feel this parrot green is very blue and the grass green is too, it's like it goes from true green all the way to grass green color-wise, and I would love a green in between that isn't so olivey or yellow. I think that's the only gap I saw in the greens. The blues I really enjoyed. They have nice dark blues, which is great. This Indian Throne blue, many sets do not have a deep blue like that. To me, the Copenhagen blue is almost a Prussian blue. I don't know that they have Prussian blue. So to me, that Copenhagen blue is more Prussian. I really love it. And the denim, of course. The purples were a little bit on the light side, but I wasn't necessarily feeling like I was missing any. Again, since this is color family order, I would almost put the dark purple in with the purples and the mulberry close to the purples and lavender. But I'm just not going to sweat that. I'm not going to reorder it. Loved all the reds. The yellows, they're really only like 3 yellows. And then we go into the orangey yellows, and here's a couple more up here. So I thought that I could use more yellows. And the oranges I think are pretty well represented. And then the orange into the reds. The browns are pretty good. You will see that in this set, some of the browns are over, like here's a chestnut over with the reds. Here's a set of orangey browns and then gray browns. So the browns are spread out. Again, if I was doing this, I would prefer having all of the browns together to make it easier to find them. But I was able to get what I needed for the drawing that I put together. Which this time, I really feel bad that with the Evazar walkthrough, I didn't do full colors. I might have to go back through and do a full color page. So I did pick a coloring page that had a lot more colors so that I could experience more of the full range of the set. And then I definitely love all the grays. I also think this is a very strong set for skin. They have lots of skin tones. Look at this whole range of the lights and then all these darks, the pinks and peaches, wonderful for skin. So now let's grab, I just have some of the greens here from the frog, so I'm gonna put these away. I did for a few of the pencils notice that the pigment did not go down thick and smooth, where you couldn't see the paper. This is a paper, it's the smooth side of Nina Bristol Vellum, but it is still textured. And I will say, I'm going to zoom in closer now for you guys so that we can hone in on some specific things. We'll see how that works. So where I have the frowny faces, it means that it wasn't 100% solid coverage. And I would imagine, since these are a wax based, that some of them have more wax in them, and they have a almost slick feel to them, not quite creamy. And then other colors feel super creamy and good. So like the marine green felt more slick, and I had a hard time getting a nice opaque coverage. The kelp green did the same thing, as well as apple and lime peel. So there are a few scattered throughout. I thought the neons also had that kind of feel to them, where they didn't. If I find this neon pink, I didn't even put a frowny face, but you can definitely see the texture, and I worked as hard as I could to get that a solid, non-textured finish and could not achieve it with every one of the colors. Now, every time I see tutorials with these pencils, they go down really smooth and creamy and thick. So I wonder, and if you guys know, you can respond, if there is a particular waxy type of a slick feeling pencil, do you just avoid it? Because like lime peel and chartreuse both are ones that you can see the texture, but they're very unique colors that I would really want to use. So that's why, of course, I'm a green person, so I was really paying attention at the very start, since I got to start with my beloved greens. So if I take this chartreuse and I look at the barrel compared to the color, compared to the lead or the pigment, I don't know that the barrels match very well, and I have a story about that when we hit the color combos. That it makes sense that when I'm comparing these, they do not have a perfect match. So this apple green is, to me, it's more of a grass green, and it does not match very well to my eye anyway. That is, of course, somewhat subjective. And then let's do the spring green. So spring green is a very bright color. Here is the pigment does match, but the barrel does not. So I would say you really need to swatch. Most sets that I see, the barrels don't match quite well enough to use it as a guide for color choice. So one thing that you will see on this first sheet is a whole bunch of little, mostly toward the top here, where I was starting out and I was getting some crumbs, and I would take my hand and I would just swipe it away. And I realized, uh-oh, I need to be way more careful with these. The pigment is just so ready to be laid down that if you take your hand on crumbs and you brush it away. So absolutely, I found I had to use my brush and be really careful to not touch my paper. So these were pretty messy compared to others. I think the only other set I found to be pretty messy and I had to be careful with were the Evazar. I've done the 120 colors, and I do have to say so far that the Color Black Barrels, I've done part of my swatches for the 180s and all of the swatches for the 120s, and I have to say I think the Color is a softer, more crayon-like pencil. I felt that the Prismacolors were not, and again, I was trying not to think about all of the typical things everybody says about these pencils, but I have to say they are not as soft as I expected them, and I found them actually really pleasant to work with aside from the messiness. I did really enjoy these pencils a lot, and I loved all the colors. All right, so that concludes all of the barrels information, the color matches. My set is of 150, seemed a good quality set. I haven't had a lot of problems. Ironically, when I had that big case sitting on my arm of my chair, which is fairly wide, I did, because of the holidays, I was up and down doing a lot of things, and I dumped that case on the floor by the chair like 4 times. And I thought, oh great, this is going to ruin these pencils, are going to get all cracked. And they're good, and they have traveled in our trailer with us thousands of miles. And yes, they were in that case their whole life. I kept them protected, but they all seemed pretty good quality aside from a couple of crumbles. Other than that, and the tips did not break. So I am pretty pleased with them overall. Let's now switch over to looking at my test sheet that I did, and I'm going to zoom in so that I can walk through and talk about my experience with all of these tests. Now, first off, when I do my light layers, it pretty much seems that by the 4th layer, I'm able to cover the tooth completely. If I do the heavy layer, one swath across with the heavy layer, I can't quite do, but that's probably because I am not experienced at it. So I have to go back a little bit with my heavy pressure ovals to fill it in. And looking at it today with this light, which you should be able to see pretty close up. I think the bottom one, if we're getting really picky, the heavy layer looks a little better than the light layer. It looks, the coverage is heavier and more smooth looking to me. I picked a random blue, and I do think that this blue has a little more, it's a little waxier probably than other colors, because I do see a little bit of the tooth in both of these boxes, though not a lot. The blending, I will get to the color combos in a minute, but this color combo, which these numbers are from Prang, I just grabbed one of my draft sheets of this that still has the numbers on. And I did not log what those numbers were, but this was just absolutely a dream to do. The combination ability of these pencils, which you'll see on the next sheet when I do the color combos, is pretty fantastic. When I did the erase test, I decided, you'll see at this point that I decided that I needed to have another color to compare to, and red seems to be more of a culprit because of its pigment just tends to get everywhere. So I went ahead and did reds beside the blues. So when I did my erase test, I did not like the red being erased with the Prismacolor Scholar because it smeared. I hope you can see that. The blue did not smear. The red did smear. Both colors are intense pigments, so they stained the paper and did not come out completely clear. So you just have to be really careful depending on the colors. And you might want to, if you're thinking of erasing or cleaning up some edges, do a quick pre-test on a scratch sheet of that color, because this is a very pigmented set of pencils. It's what they're known for. Then when I used my, I don't even have it here right now. When I used my kneaded eraser, which I use to pick up a little bit of the pigment, this is a very highly pigmented set of pencils, and so I did not find, you could see that a little bit of the red would get picked up, but it was not consistent to the shape that I made my kneaded eraser on the end. And the blue did not pick up at all. So I don't know that you can use the kneaded eraser removal technique that I use that for, where I just tap it and it picks up just the slightest bit. So if I went a little heavy and I want to lighten it up, I can do that with my other pencils, but the Prismacolors did not pick up nicely as I would have wanted them to. I'm still looking for it. I don't see it here. And so then the small eraser, which is this little guy, I had a hard time. I had to sit and twirl to try to get a little circle to pick up. So again, because the kneaded eraser wasn't picking up, I did not expect to be able to make nice little dots. The first dot I did came out kind of blurry on the red. I had better luck with the blue. So with any erasing you want to do with these, just do testing first. And then I have more to talk about on that when I get to some other steps with this. And then the last erase test I did not do, but I do have with me, is my electric AFMAT. And I just want to see if I have pretty good luck. I imagined that I would, yeah. So you're able to use your best erasable is going to be the electric eraser, which does work just like I would expect. So that's nice. That's going to be your best bet for erasing the Prismacolor. Like if you're doing a coloring image and it went around over before you want to do another color, for instance, if you've used red and you went outside the lines and you're now going to go and color right next to it across the line some light color, be sure to erase it first, preferably with an electric eraser, because this is highly pigmented and difficult to get picked up. So I like the hard eraser. In fact, I should just put a little plus by the, oh, I don't even have electric. Well, wouldn't you know? I should probably have that as a D. So I'm going to put a plus by that. This was okay. Needed was not good. Mono Zero was not good. Okay, because I like to refer to these, since I use all sorts of pencils, it's hard to remember and keep track what all of them do. Smudge test, the blue smudged a little bit, the red smudged all over. That's pretty standard, I would say, behavior for these highly pigmented colors. So I would use glassine or something under your palm, whether you're right or left-handed. Keep your palm not touching your coloring pages because this is a very smudgeable set. The water test, you get movement on both colors, pretty even between the two. And then when I was doing my blending tests, the best blending was with the pencil. And when I used the Prismacolor blending on my coloring project that I used, I found with the light colors, see, here's where I used red last, that with the light colors, this was making my light color look a little dirty, as if there is a little bit of color in this blender. All of this is all of the different materials with no pigment, so no color, but it was affecting the color of the light pencils. So I went and grabbed my favorite blender, which is the Caran d'Ache Bright Full Blender, and I had zero issues with my light area that I was trying to blend on my coloring project. The colors stayed true. The blending stump didn't do too well. I was not expecting that it would do well. It just kind of smeared it around, but didn't really fill it in. And these were not vivid. The blue I colored in too dark. So even though I went through and did the blue, where the blending stump ended up picking up some of the blue, the red actually was colored at a different, it was not colored all the way. It actually, I left some of the tooth showing purposefully, and it filled in the best with the blending pencil. You did the Prismacolor on the bright colors, works great. But again, I would be really careful with the Prismacolor blending pencil on the light colors. And the blending pencil on the blue that I put down too much, like if you have put it down so heavy that it is solid, don't even bother using a blending pencil, because what it does at that point is picks up some of the color. That's what was happening on all of these blue squares that I colored in really dark. Well, that's a lesson learned there. And then the water or alcohol blending pen, I used a Stampin' Up! Blending pen that I have just sitting around here, and I'm not sure what ingredient. It says it's Xylon free, acid free. It does not smell like alcohol, but I'm not sure what the ingredients are, and it did a great job on the red. And then I used water on the one side, and water just did not work. I don't advise trying to blend with water. Burnishing. My personal favorite is burnishing with heavy pressure. And then because of the opaqueness of the Prismacolors, the Prismacolor white is going to turn your, whatever color you have is going to mix with the white, because it just blends together and smooshes. And so that's why you have this pink and the light blue look. That is from the white. So I would not burnish with white. I would just burnish with the color. Or you could probably use like a Derwent burnishing pencil if you wanted. So overall, with these tests, I wasn't really surprised by anything. And I was a little surprised with the erasability limitations. That's probably the biggest surprise with the Prismas, that erasing you need to be really careful with and understand that they are highly pigmented, so it's not going to erase as completely as maybe another set would. So that finishes that. Now I want to get into the color combos. I started doing the color combos. Oh, let's move out. I started to do the color combos after I finished the first swatch page. I got a little cocky and thought, hey, I know these pencils well enough. I've done that mini swatch sheet, and I spent many, many hours with them. So I only had the green swatch sheet right here to refer to. So I'm trying to do my color combo sheets consistently. So by the time I finished these, using the barrels and all these little lines to do my color choices, I'm like, wow, I clearly don't know these pencils as well as I think. So I had to stop. I think by Ocean I stopped and went right back to swatching because it was taking too many swapping outs of colors when I was practicing these, because I always practice them first, and it was taking way too long. So that was a lesson learned for me that nope, you cannot just trust barrels and little tiny swatches. You need to swatch for real and get to know them first. So I had much better luck after I fully swatched. So I have Color here as the comparison because I wanted to reiterate that I felt the colors looked very crayon-like. They felt very crayon-like compared to the Prismacolors, which actually felt, I know you're all going to be mad at me for this, but I really feel they're very close to the Polychromos feel. Almost silky feeling, not sticky, creamy feeling. Yes, there's a few colors that are sticky, creamy, but I only had a few colors do the weird stippling thing that I've had on a couple of different sets with their dark colors. So when I look at the color sheet and I compare it to the Prismacolor, I got the Prismacolors way smoother than I did the colors. I can see some of the paper tooth, so it makes me feel like perhaps I didn't try hard enough on the colors. They were so crayonish that I just kind of let them be. They blended really well in between the colors, but I really didn't work on the smoothness compared to how smooth the Prismacolors came out. So it makes me want to try redoing this sheet at some point in the future to see if perhaps it was just my mindset of allowing there to be tooth showing. I have also told you guys in the past when I've done swatches, I've gotten a little lax and allowed there to be some tooth showing, and I really, for my own purposes, don't want to be doing that. So I have the Ocean. This is electric blue. This is one of them I put a frowny face by. You see a little bit of a weird stippling. You can see the tooth and it goes light, dark, so it's not smooth. And then it did the same thing with the Moss, which the Moss tends to be that dark color of green has got like a grainy pigment perhaps. Something makes it do that. But then I did a better job with the wood green color, which uses the same color in the middle here, and I was able to not get that effect. So perhaps I adjusted my pressure to have that not. I probably, when I put too much pigment down, it starts to gather in the different grooves of the tooth, something like that. Then I had, from a long time ago, these little post-it notes that are from one of the more Prisma dominant colorists, Color My World, and I had logged about 8 different fun combinations from her, and I picked a few of them. I did want to do the light and dark skin, so I had to leave these 2 boxes, and I picked 3 combinations, and the Unicorn Magic was phenomenal, just really, really nice. I couldn't believe how well the colors blended together, and then the mixed colors in between, how they came out. And then this one that doesn't have a name I also really like. And then the leaves, I did yellow to green to a darker green and the darkest green, and it wasn't as interesting, so I did a little bit of it where I was doing varied colors, light to dark, light to dark, light to dark. So those were like bonus colors, and I'm glad I remembered these little post-it notes so I could further explore some of the fun, unique color combinations that you can get away with the Prismacolors because of how well they smush together. The final note with the color combos is that unlike for the colors, there's a little bit of lightening of the black lines. I'm actually glad for these heavy black lines. I don't remember who I got this sheet from. I did not make it myself. And because of the opaqueness of the colors of the Prismacolor, if they're a light color, you actually end up getting a tint of that color on the black. So the black is no longer a vivid black due to how opaque the Prismacolors are. So I will discuss that further when I look at my coloring project. I had to deal with that in some way. I also noticed that I do have some smudging a little bit here and there at the top. And then by the time I was doing the bottom part, I had already swatched. I had already learned about how messy the crumbs are and how important it is to either not erase, like these little overlaps, I just left them, and not use my hand to swipe them away. So the top of this looks very kind of messy to me, and the rest of the page looks pretty clean because I had, at that point, figured out the pencils and how to work with them and keep them clean. So that's it for color combos. I'm going to bring out frogs, which I did stop. I have, I keep setting episodes and what that episode is going to have. So if I have other content to do, I can do an ABC, but I prefer not to do that. So I did 2 of the frogs, and I'm going to do the 3rd frog at a later date. So here is my basic frog, just basic coloring, nothing fancy, light layers. And I feel that this frog, now that I'm finished with it, I should go back and put a little more color into it. I think I undercolored it a tiny bit, but I think that the rest of this is pretty good. You can see some of the crayon texture here, where the way that the Prismacolors are, they do look somewhat crayon-like. I'm looking at the Color 120s, and they also look crayon-like. They have that crayon-esque look to them. For the basic frog, remember this frog, I had a problem. I put too much of this chartreuse, and so my frog looked really yellow, and I needed to fix it. So that's why it has a yellow tint to it. Let's go back to Artex. So Artex is another one that is typically thought to be a very close match in look and feel to the Prismas, and I find that it actually did a nicer job. It's a smoother laydown, not as toothy looking, but very similar, definitely very similar. And I'm loving this disc-bound system. I still need to do a full video on that system that I've gone with, but I just really am liking how easy it is. So when I get ready to do videos with you guys, I have to take all of these out of sleeves in my 3-ring binder because the protective sleeves, it's shiny. So now I no longer have these in protective sleeves. They're just bound with the punch that matches these discs. Polychromos. So let's just do a quick matchup. Much smoother laydown overall than the Prismas, but still very similar. Let's see, Starjoy Gold, very hard, probably the hardest lead pencil after the Prang, and it goes down really smooth compared to the Prismas, but I'm not surprised by that. Prang. See, Prang holds its own. Every time I look at Prang, they may be really, really cheap, but they still do a pretty decent job. And then the last one, which isn't even in the book, which I could put in the book, is the Speer Farben. And it's pretty grainy. That's a pretty soft pencil. I know that people think the Speer Farben is very close to the Polys, but based on this laydown, I think it is more closer to the Prismas. All right, so now let's go with my cartoony Copic marker style. And I think that the Prismas, of course, did fantastic. Very similar to the Sprühfarben. Here's the Artex. Now, I could have somehow done a more fabulous job because this Artex came out so vibrant, and I remember coloring it, being so impressed with the vibrancy, and I was thinking for sure the Prismas would be just as vibrant. So it is possible that I just put more lay down and I went darker clearly with the chromium oxide green. This dark green is every bit as green. So I might have to put a little extra effort into this, see if I can get the frog deeper, darker. But other than that, they're very, very close. Sprühfarben, a very close match. And here's our colors. Very similar. I did a little bit different coloring style, but very, very similar. Can't wait to sit down and do the more realistic colored frog. And here's the polys. Again, very similar. So overall, so far, at this point, I'm very pleased with the Prismas, and I'm not frustrated with them, with the quality issues that they are known to have. And I've logged and taken note of anything that I do need to be aware of with these pencils for future projects. Now let's see, this is my coloring project that I did. It is R.J. Hampson, Naughty and Nice. It is from his newsletter that he sends out about once a month, and you get a free coloring project with that newsletter. And I really enjoyed coloring this. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to zoom in now. I hope you're going to be able to see that there is a smudge of red where I accidentally used my hand and went, uh-oh. And I have actually tried to erase it. Let's see if I try again, if I can. Yeah, I think that that's after I've erased everything that I can. And it is still there. So that is the one thing. I see some little pigment down here. And see here, I'm touching it. I probably shouldn't be. I would even say, once you're done with a project with the Prismas, find a good fixative and use the fixative on it to keep from having any accidents with it. Over here I've got some green where I had some smudging and I can't get that up. Where I was talking about the Prismacolor blender, I was using the blender in the grays, didn't really notice anything, but when I went up here I noticed some color shifts I didn't like, and when I grabbed the Caran d'Ache Bright and continued with some of my blending for this parchment look, I wasn't disappointed at all. I didn't have any extra weird color changes that I wasn't expecting. Hey, I forgot one little thing that I promised I would discuss, and that is the opaqueness of the light colors and how I overcame that. So I actually see that on the Merry Christmas, when I colored my light parchment looking blend that I did, a color combo, using a variety of the very lights, I noticed that I had some of the letters, the AS, maybe I did not fix all the way, so some of the opaque is making the black lettering lighter, and the best way I could think to deal with it was taking the black, the Prisma black, sharpened it to a very sharp point, and then I went across the M and the C and up into the H, down the bottom of the Y, and I'm not sure, I can see it looking not through my camera lens. When I look through the camera lens, I can't see it, so I'm not sure if you can, but I did go back across that the T has been altered, so I tried to darken up the Merry Christmas. If you guys have another alternative, I was worried if I tried black marker that first off I would mess it up and that it might not adhere properly over the wax. So I felt the best way to deal with it for me was using a very sharp black Prisma pencil. So sorry about forgetting that. And now we'll go back to the normal programming. I really enjoyed these. My husband's comment to me was, wow, that doesn't even look like colored pencil at all. So that is definitely something you will get with the Prismas that not many, maybe the Colors can get that vibrancy, but that is, and the Artex can get as vibrant. I have Artesas that I just got used that I have a haul video of. That's one of the things I bought for my birthday. So I can't wait to get to using those. It is the 72 set, not the 120, sadly. So I will already feel limited right away. So 2 choices that as a colorist I got to make on this project. There's these trunks of trees and some deciduous leaf shapes where you can color this whole thing green to up to the signage or even up into the wreath. And I asked my husband what he thought. I was personally inclined to leave it because I didn't want it to become too color heavy. And he was like, nope, I would leave that alone. And then this walk I could have done with a dark color, but I had a hard time deciding where I would stop the color as I went down into the Santa Claus sleigh and deer. So I decided to keep it nice and balanced. I would leave those 2 elements uncolored. And yes, I wonder if the very bright, like the emerald green shrubs, those are pretty bright, but it was a color family of greens I hadn't used, and since it's for my own purposes of getting to know the colors, I thought, no, I am going to put that vibrant green down so that I can see how fabulous it looks on a colored image. So yeah, it might be a little too bright compared to the olivey greens used, and then not as bright as the holly leaves, which are a very waxy green leaf, but I still like it. So that is everything. If I'm missing anything, please let me know. Leave it in the comments. I am happy to go back at any time and revisit any of the sets that I have done my detailed walkthroughs on. I have maybe in the past called these reviews, but since it's so personal and what I like or dislike someone else might be the absolute opposite, I'm going to call these detailed walkthroughs. I think that's just a more fair term to use than a review. I want to do all of the detailed things that you would do for a review, but I just feel that with my experience level that I am at, it's more appropriate for me to call it a detailed walkthrough. So again, let me know of anything you think I have missed. I do have almost all of the colors. I should probably share this with you because it's kind of funny. This is where I was keeping track of the colors. And this is where I was having to clean off the pencils. I kind of showed you a couple of tips. These pencils, when you are mushing colors together, you will get the other color on your tip, kind of like, you know, a marker would. So be ready to keep things clean. A lot of these was me cleaning off very carefully the tips of these blender pencils that I was using. So that's the biggest thing with the Prismas, is you must, if you really want clean and tidy work, it's a part of the process of using them is being very careful with colors contaminating other colors. The other thing is when you're coloring, you have to keep your pressure consistent. You can easily slip and get, you know, a dark line, and then once you have that dark line, you've got to keep working it to get that dark line to go away. So I found it's much better to just practice your consistency and keep your pressure, whatever pressure you're using, be consistent with it with these pencils. All right. I could probably go on forever because that's the way I am. I just love to get into the nitty gritty of these things. I will have a picture of the frogs page and this page as well as the swatches. I'll get just static images at the end in my showcase like I always do. Please do all of the YouTube things, like, share, comment, and subscribe. It is almost the 1st of January, so I wish everybody a Happy New Year. I will be putting up a poll for the next set that you would like me to do. We'll see what you guys think, because I love them all, so I might as well find out what you guys would like to see before anything else. And as always, thanks for watching.